Hello, Chuck Lieber here again with Lieber's Home Team, representing Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate all seasons. And thanks for tuning into my video blog. This episode is about what is known in the business as dual agency. Let me start by saying I am not an attorney and therefore cannot give legal advice, but here's the information as I understand it regarding dual agency. Dual agency representation occurs when both the buyer and the seller are represented by the same brokerage, not necessarily the same agent. It's the broker who is technically representing the client. So a single entity, the brokerage, is trying to look out for the best interests of two opposing parties with mutually exclusive interests. Minnesota state laws address that situation as best it can by essentially denying advice to each party of a dual agency transaction. Under dual agency, both the listing agent and the buyer's agent, both being from the same brokerage, are prohibited by law from advising their clients to the detriment of the other party of the transaction. One subtle result of this law is that since the multiple offices of some of the larger brokerages in the Twin Cities are under the same brokerage, by having them represent you, your chances of being thrust into a dual agency transaction is approximately 35%. Some of the brokerages boast that they represent both buyer and seller in a large percentage of their transactions, but if the public had a better understanding of the consequences of that scenario, I doubt that they would continue that approach to marketing their services. You have the right to refuse dual agency, but then as a seller, you would be limiting the number of buyers who could purchase your home, and as a buyer, you would be limiting the number of homes that you could purchase. Buyers and sellers are most often at the mercy of their agent to interpret the plethora of forms used in a real estate transaction. Some unethical agents either choose to gloss over the dual agency subject or tell you that they will, in a dual agency situation, advise you anyway. The latter is a clear violation of the Realtor Code of Ethics and, in my opinion, the law as outlined by the Minnesota Department of Commerce. It would prompt me to stop and think, if my agent would violate the law in this circumstance, what other laws or Realtor Code of Ethics articles would they violate? Might those other laws or articles that they may be ignoring or violating be to my detriment without me knowing about it? When you read the agency disclosure, pay particular attention to the dual agency section. It specifically says, and I quote, "This role limits the level of representation the broker and the salesperson can provide and prohibits them from acting exclusively for either party." End quote. It also says, and again I quote, "Dual agents may not advocate for one party to the detriment of the other." End quote. If an agent won't be honest with you about dual agency, find a different trustworthy agent. Again, I'm Chuck Lieber with Lieber's Home Team, representing Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, all seasons. Thanks for taking the time to view this episode of my video blog, and tune in next time.